The flickering light above the pharmacy counter buzzed faintly, casting a tired glow over the shelves lined with medicine bottles and cough syrups. It was close to 9 p.m., and the small-town pharmacy was nearly empty, except for a young mother standing nervously at the counter, holding the trembling hand of her sick little girl. Lena's heart raced. Her daughter Emma's breathing was shallow, her cheeks pale as paper. She had been running a fever for 3 days, and the doctor had finally prescribed a special antibiotic, a medicine that wasn't covered by the cheap insurance plan Lena could barely afford. Now she was here, staring at the screen in front of the cashier, hoping the total would somehow be less than what she feared. The cashier, a woman in her 30s, scanned the bottle and typed a few keys. The computer beeped softly, and a number appeared on the screen. "That'll be $327.49, she said politely, bagging the medicine. Lena felt her stomach twist. She opened her worn-out purse, the same one she had carried since college, and began counting the cash she had managed to save from her last 2 shifts at the diner. She whispered to herself, counting under her breath, 20, 40, 60, 80, her hands trembling more with each bill. When she was done, she looked up with a weak smile. I have $190. Can I pay the rest next week? I just need the medicine today." The cashier hesitated, biting her lip. "I'm sorry, Mom," she said softly. "We can't split payments on prescriptions." "Store policy." Lena's chest tightened. She looked down at Emma, who was leaning against her leg, her small body hot with fever. "Please," Lena said in a shaky voice. "She's sick. The doctor said she needs this tonight. Can you make an exception?" The cashier's eyes softened with sympathy, but she shook her head. "If I could, I would." "I'm so sorry." Behind Lena, a man in a business suit cleared his throat. Another woman in line sighed impatiently. The world didn't pause for her pain, and that somehow hurt most of all. Lena swallowed the lump in her throat and forced a smile, pretending she was fine. "It's okay," she whispered, mostly to herself. "I'll figure something out." She turned to Emma. "Come on, sweetheart." But as she reached for her daughter's hand, Emma suddenly swayed, dizzy, her knees giving out. Lena dropped to the floor, catching her just in time. "Emma? Baby, hey, open your eyes," Lena pleaded, panic flooding her voice. The cashier gasped and rushed out from behind the counter, kneeling beside them. "She's burning up," she said. "She needs that medicine right away." Lena could barely speak through her tears. "I know, but I can't pay." And that's when a quiet, steady voice broke through the chaos. "Charge it to me." Everyone turned toward the voice. Standing a few feet behind Lena was a tall man in an immaculate charcoal suit. His hair was neatly combed, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. He didn't look like he belonged in a corner town pharmacy at night, more like someone who had just walked out of a corporate boardroom. He took a step forward, his tone calm but firm. "You heard me," he told the cashier. "Charge it to me. Give her whatever her daughter needs." The cashier blinked in surprise. Sir, it's over $300. "Doesn't matter," the man said, pulling out his wallet. "Use this." He handed her a black credit card that gleamed faintly under the fluorescent light. One of those cards people only saw in movies, the kind with no spending limit. Lena looked up, her eyes wide and confused. "Sir, no, you can't. I don't even know you." The man knelt down beside her, his voice gentle now. "You don't have to know me," he said softly. "You just have to let me help." Tears filled Lena's eyes. Her pride screamed at her to refuse. She had worked so hard to stand on her own, to raise her daughter without charity. But one look at Emma's flushed face and half-closed eyes, and all that pride melted into desperation. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Thank you so much." The man smiled faintly. "No need to thank me. Just take care of her." He stood back as the cashier hurried to ring up the purchase and bag the medicine. Within moments, the bottle was in Lena's hands. She quickly gave Emma a dose right there at the counter, whispering comforting words as the little girl swallowed it. Her breathing eased, just a little, and she leaned into her mother's shoulder, finally drifting into light sleep. Lena exhaled shakily, relief washing over her. She turned back to the man, wanting to at least learn his name, but he was already heading toward the door. "Wait!" she called. "Please, I didn't even ask your name." He paused, turning slightly. The light from the window caught his face, sharp, kind eyes, and the faintest trace of sadness in his expression. "It's not important," he said. "Just remember that good people still exist, okay?" Then he left. The glass door swung closed behind him, leaving only the faint sound of a car engine starting outside. Lena stood there for a moment, frozen. She didn't know what to say or how to feel. It had all happened so fast. The cashier came over and smiled softly. "That was kind of him," she said. "You don't see that every day." Lena nodded, still dazed. "Yeah," she whispered. "You really don't." As she carried Emma out of the pharmacy and into the cool night air, she looked up at the dark sky, the streetlights glowing faintly above. For the first time in months, she felt a small spark of hope, like maybe the world wasn't as cold as it seemed. What Lena didn't know, as she walked home that night, was that the stranger who had paid for her daughter's medicine wasn't just anyone. He was Ethan Warren, one of the most successful CEOs in the country, the head of the very company that made the drug Emma needed to live. And this wasn't the first time he'd helped a stranger in silence. It was the only way he knew to ease the guilt that haunted him every day. Guilt for a little girl he couldn't save years ago. But that part of the story was still to come. The morning sun peeked through the curtains of the small apartment as Lena stirred awake to the faint sound of her daughter's laughter. For the first time in weeks, Emma wasn't coughing. She wasn't pale or weak. She was sitting up in bed, playing with her stuffed bunny, a bright sparkle returning to her tired eyes. Lena smiled through tears. The medicine had worked. As she made breakfast, her phone began to buzz. She glanced at the screen, an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Good morning, ma'am," said a cheerful voice on the other end. "This is Sarah from the pharmacy. We just wanted to inform you that your daughter's prescriptions have been completely paid for. Not just this one, but for the next 6 months. You won't need to worry about refills." Lena blinked, confused. "What? Paid for? By who?" The voice hesitated. He asked not to make a big deal out of it. "Just said to tell you his name was Mr. Warren." Her heart skipped. Mr. Warren? The name rang in her head as she hung up the call. She couldn't shake it. It sounded familiar. That evening, after putting Emma to bed, Lena sat at the small table in their kitchen with her old laptop. Curiosity gnawed at her. She typed Mr. Warren CEO into the search bar, and within seconds, the screen filled with news articles. Photos of the man she had met at the pharmacy stared back at her. Ethan Warren, CEO of Warren Pharmaceuticals, one of the wealthiest and most influential businessmen in the country. Her mouth fell open. That quiet, kind stranger was a billionaire? She scrolled through the articles, reading headlines about his company's success, his charitable donations, and how he had built his empire after a personal tragedy, the loss of his only daughter to a rare illness. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Suddenly, it all made sense. The look in his eyes that night, the softness in his voice when he saw Emma sick and struggling. He wasn't just being kind. He was reliving something deeply personal. The man behind the name. That same night, in a penthouse overlooking the glittering city, Ethan Warren sat alone in his office. The room was elegant but lonely, walls lined with framed awards, and on his desk, a single photograph of a little girl with curly brown hair. Her name was Lily, his daughter. He picked up the photo, tracing her smiling face with his thumb. "You'd be about Emma's age now," he whispered. He remembered the hospital room, the sterile smell, the sound of machines that never stopped beeping. Lily had been only 6 when she was diagnosed with a rare infection, one that needed a drug that hadn't been made affordable at the time. Ethan had been just a struggling chemist then, still years away from starting his own company. He had begged for help. He had sold everything he owned, but by the time he got the money, it was too late. Lily was gone. That loss had driven him to build Warren Pharmaceuticals. He had promised himself no parent would ever have to lose a child just because they couldn't afford medicine. But as the company grew, shareholders demanded profits, and prices rose again. He'd lost control of the very dream he built. Until that night, when he saw Lena in the pharmacy, begging for help, just like he once did. It had felt like fate giving him a second chance. A letter from the past. 3 days later, a plain white envelope appeared in Lena's mailbox. Inside was a short, handwritten letter, elegant and neat. Miss Lena, your strength as a mother reminded me of someone I loved deeply. Years ago, I lost my little girl because I couldn't get her medicine in time. I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I'd make sure no other parent faced the same pain. I'm glad your daughter is well. Don't give up. The world still needs hearts like yours. E.W. Lena read it over and over, tears falling onto the paper. It wasn't just a letter. It was a piece of his heart. A chance encounter. Months passed. Emma grew stronger each day. Lena found a new job at a small clinic. Inspired by what had happened, she wanted to help other struggling families. One morning, while setting up the reception desk, she heard the sound of expensive shoes against the tile floor. She looked up and unfroze. It was him, Ethan Warren. He smiled when he saw her recognition. Miss Lena, he said warmly. You work here now? She nodded, her voice catching. Yes, thanks to you, actually. After what you did, I wanted to do something that matters. He looked genuinely touched. Then I guess we both learned something that night, he said. They talked for a while, about Emma, about life, about how small acts can change everything. Before leaving, Ethan handed her a business card. If you ever need anything, he said, call me. I mean it. She took the card with both hands, feeling the weight of the moment. The full circle. Weeks later, a storm rolled through town. Lightning cracked the sky as Lena rushed into the clinic late one night. She had volunteered to help during the blackout. Inside, she found a man on a stretcher, pale and unconscious. The paramedics said he'd been found near his car after an accident on the highway. His wallet had been soaked, but one thing was still readable, a business card that said Warren Pharmaceuticals. Lena's heart dropped. No, it can't be him, but it was. Ethan Warren. She stayed by his side all night, refusing to leave. She held his hand, whispering, You helped save my daughter's life. Now it's my turn. When he finally woke the next morning, weak but alive, the first thing he saw was her face, smiling through tears. Looks like we're even now, she said softly. He chuckled weakly. Maybe. But I think you still owe me 1 cup of coffee. She laughed, relief flooding through her. A legacy of kindness. In the months that followed, Lena and Ethan stayed in touch. Together, they started a small community fund to help parents afford medical treatments for their children. The Lily Foundation, named after Ethan's late daughter. It began as a local effort, but soon news of their story spread. Donations poured in. Hospitals partnered with them. And one evening, as they stood at a charity event surrounded by smiling families, Ethan looked down at little Emma, healthy, bright, full of life, and whispered, Your mom saved you, but you also saved me. Lena smiled back. No, Ethan, she said gently. You saved both of us. He looked up at the sky, eyes glistening. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Maybe he couldn't change the past, but he had changed someone's future. And all it took were 4 simple words spoken on an ordinary night that carried the power to heal 2 broken hearts.